I feel like I'm interviewing Stevie Nicks or Madonna. That's the level of excitement and admiration I have for Candace Leslie Cima, who I've been following for a while on Instagram. She goes by Life in My 70s. She's about to hit 200K followers. And I am over the moon that she accepted, that you accepted to be here with me.
It was my pleasure.
I know that you got started in 2019. It's coming up soon. And well, actually, maybe it's already happened, February
I
2019.
think, yeah, I think it was like, I can't remember. I think it was like the 19th of February. Yeah, yeah, we're
Ooh.
almost there.
And I know what happened, but can you tell us why you joined Instagram and what made you get started on
Well,
this path?
kind of a fluke. Until that day, I had never even heard the term influencer. I had no idea what an influencer was. And I was reading an article, I think it was by Zeph Cohen in Vogue magazine. And he was talking about influencers. And of course, everybody he was talking about was a young person, much younger person. So I started thinking, well, I wonder if there's any older influencers. Because for some weird reason, I don't know why, I've always had this thing about aging. I've always had a million ideas in my head. I've always had a lot of things I wanted to say. So I decided to look for older Instagram influencers. And at that time, I really didn't see any. I have since then met some great ones, but at that time, I didn't find them. So on a lark, I just decided that I would put up a post saying one of my thoughts about aging and style or aging and something else. And I actually did it under my middle name because I didn't want my friends and family to see that this old lady was posting her picture all over the internet. At that time, it just seemed kind of a strange thing for me to be doing. So anyway, long story short, I posted it and some people started following me. And so I posted again and more people started following me. And I just can't even believe that now, like you said, I'm almost to 200,000 followers. So I'm really very thankful. And I'm even more thankful that I have the followers, but I'm really thankful to have this platform to talk about aging because I have so many thoughts in my head about what I think is wrong with the way society deals with aging now and the way women look at themselves as they age. So to have the chance and to have the platform to talk about it and at least share my ideas, I think is just a huge gift for me.
Well, it's a huge gift for people like me. I'm 60 and you are now 76, correct?
77 next week.
77 next week. Happy
Yeah.
birthday in advance.
Thank you.
But it's so inspiring for me because just as younger people follow me to realize that they can turn 60 and still be relevant and working and doing things, for me, it's the same when I look at you because I personally, being a creative and coming from a creative family, a family of authors, of writers. I'm married to a writer who used to be a photojournalist. So I feel that I will never retire. My dad is 85 and he's still writing his books. He still teaches English and he in Spain. And he, like my grandfather died writing, my father-in-law did too. And I feel that's going to be you. And it's definitely going to be me.
Yeah, I hope I get to do it. I'm curiosity is something else that I also have a lot about aging. I'm always so curious to see what the next decade, next year, whatever is going to bring. So I'm hoping that I'm still doing this when I'm in my 90s. I don't know if I'll be that lucky, but that's my hope.
But you also don't sugarcoat it. Like you say that you have a really positive attitude online. And I constantly point people in your direction when I get comments on my posts on Instagram from older women who are maybe a little younger than you. And they're telling me, wait till you get to my age. It's not all roses or whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
follow Candace because look at her. She's not
Yeah.
saying that it's perfect, but she's definitely got the right attitude.
And attitude is everything. I mean, you can make a very bad situation seem so much better with the right attitude, or you can make a good situation horrible with a terrible attitude. So yeah, I truly believe that one of the most important things that you can do as you get older is to have the right attitude. And, I also think you have to accept that things are not going to stay the way they were, and you can't be constantly fighting against it. You can't be constantly chasing that youth that you used to have. You can't be constantly annoyed because you can't do things you used to be able to do. it's natural. This is the way it is, but it doesn't mean it's bad, and somehow society has created this whole persona around aging that it's negative. It isn't. I don't understand it. The most natural thing in the world, and it's not negative, but you can convince yourself that it is.
So I'll tell you a not so secret why I am such an advocate for positivity around aging is that I grew up watching my very young father, 24 years older than me, 25, uh, complain about aging, but he complained about it when he turned 30, when he
Oh
turned
God.
35. And I was a child watching this. And I was
No.
like, I remember asking my grandmother in Spain, is daddy turning 40? And she said he would kill you if he heard you say that. And I was like, why? I think I had one age crisis at 25 when I was like, oh, quarter of a century. And I was very messed up mentally and emotionally with an eating disorder, depression, a bunch of stuff I was battling. But that was the only time. And then when I turned 30, I was like, wow, I'm finally 30. I had just published a book in Spain. I was, feeling like an adult, that people would take me seriously, finally. And that was it, and then 40, 50, like I've been living life. And I made a really big deal out of turning 60 online just because I can. I'm alive. Just as you said, I lost my best friend to cancer 5 years ago. She'll never be my
Oh,
age. What do I have to look forward to as I grow older? Because, of course, I also know this. I know that I'm not going to have the stamina at 70 that I have at 60. Most likely, I don't have the stamina at 60 that I had at 50, but I still go to the gym. I still do things.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I look forward to new goals all the time.
mhm.
I'm a person that has to set new goals for myself, and I thoroughly enjoy achieving them. And I think that it almost feels better as you get older when you achieve your goals, because it's something that you're basing on all of your knowledge from your whole life. You know that you probably could not have achieved those goals 20 or
Correct.
30 years ago because you didn't have the wisdom to know how to do it. Now that we're older, you just have so much to draw on, to just be the very best version of yourself that you could ever be, and I know that things are constantly changing. And that's why my line is always aging is changing,
Oh,
because I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think just like aging is changing, women or men have to keep changing. So the whole idea of aging is changing means you are changing actually every single minute. I'm not the same person this minute I was a minute ago, and I'm definitely going to be a different person tomorrow. So I just find the excitement of all of that. I don't know, it just makes me happy. So I'm thoroughly enjoying getting older.
and it's very contagious. It's like if I ever have a bad day, because I don't know if you have them, but I've definitely had days when I have an ache or a pain or something happened where I'm like, man, is this forever? And
Yeah.
then I overcome that, and I go to you to see your attitude. I'm like, okay, she's got this. I'm going to be fine. So what do you do if you have a day like that or a moment like that?
What changed my life is meditation. I grew up a very anxious person, the daughter of a very anxious woman. My mother suffered from anxiety her whole life. Thankfully, I never got it as bad as she got it. But I watched that and I thought, boy, I don't want that. And I realized as I was getting into my 20s, 30s, I had anxieties, that I didn't want to do. They were holding me back from actually being the person that I wanted to be. I had to get out of my own way to be able to achieve things. So I finally, actually, it was my primary care physician. I was running a business at the time. I owned a senior living community, and I would tend to be so caught up in work that I wouldn't even realize that the stress was getting to me until it
Mm,
manifested itself in some kind of physical way. And so I would sometimes get spells of insomnia. And I remember talking to my primary care physician and him saying, problem with you is that you can handle all this stress, and then you don't realize that it is affecting you physically until it's really gotten to the point where you have to, your body is saying, you got to deal with this. So he recommended meditation. And when he first did, I thought, I've tried that. I can't do that. I don't get it. I don't know what people are seeing when they're meditating. And he directed me toward mindful based stress reduction.
mhm.
Um, and that's when I first learned about John Kabat-Zinn and the Massachusetts Medical Center. And so I ended up talking a girlfriend of mine who didn't have anxiety into taking the class with me. And it was an 8-week class, and you were committed to the full 8 weeks. And it just changed my life. I really learned what meditation was all about. I learned how to look at anxiety differently. I learned that you're never going to get rid of anxiety, but you can change your relationship with anxiety. And that right there, that made all the difference in the world. So I feel like at my age now, I have a toolbox of things that I can go to if I'm having a bad day. If I've, like you said, had an injury or an illness and you're feeling like, oh my God, it's just ever going to go away. I can, go to this toolbox of things that I've learned to use to get my thinking in the right direction and get my attitude in the right direction. So it's much easier now than it would have been for me years ago to move past these things. I have to say that meditation is probably something I would recommend to anybody and everybody. I think too many people still think, oh, meditation, that's that out there thing that those weird people do. And I wish that I could convince women how important it is.
How old were you when you started meditation?
Well, I wasn't real young. Let me think now. I must have been 52, something like that when I started it.
Right.
Um,
Good. I'm glad that you can say that, because I feel that a lot of women think it's too late after a certain age, and
right.
that
Yeah.
too late
Yeah.
starts really young. Like after
Yeah.
30, a lot of people say, I have a neighbor who is 40 and says it's too late for her to learn a new language. I'm like, what? You have, like, until you're my age, you have 20 years. I have to say that I still am. I struggle with anxiety and clinical depression, but as you said, I have a toolbox. I do take a little bit of medication, but at the same time, I have this big toolbox. I became a certified yoga instructor at 55 after a lifetime of practicing yoga, but I
Yeah.
wanted to delve into not only the physical part. That's the part that I do for show, more or less, because a picture, is often
Yeah.
more attracts people's attention. I could say all the things in the world, but if they don't see me
Right.
in a certain pose, then they might not even read the caption. But really, I was very, wanting to find that inner,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not peace, but that okay, I can sit with the hard feelings, I can sit with the anxiety, it's not going to kill me, and deal with hard things like a close brush with colon cancer, my best friend dying of colon cancer, my grandmother died the same year at 102, may I add, though, so that was good. Yeah.
Good genes.
Yeah, yeah. What I love about growing older is that I do feel so much more confident, so much more okay with myself now than I was at
Yeah.
20. And meditation, as going back to what you were saying, has also helped me. When I was younger, I thought I could never meditate. Like I was a runner, and that was my meditation. I was so wrong.
Yeah. I took little steps into meditation. I read books, I followed tapes, just didn't quite get it until I took this course. It used to cost money to take it, but now actually the Massachusetts General Medical Center now offers an online course of the original class. So anybody can take it from anywhere. That's something I always recommend to my followers when they're asking.
They might look at you now and say, oh my God, of course she's happy, she's beautiful, and, fit and has this great life. But you've had your challenges too.
Yeah, yeah, just like everybody else. When I was younger, I spent a year in a hospital with encephalitis, and then the usual challenges, starting businesses and, the daily life of raising children and all of that. And then when my late husband got ill, he had kidney disease and he actually needed a kidney transplant. So, we did that waiting, for the beeper to go off to let you know you have a kidney. And in the meantime, he was on dialysis. I actually got trained in peritoneal dialysis. So I was able to, he didn't have to go to the dialysis center. I could do the dialysis at home. So we did 10 hours of dialysis a day at home. Then he finally got the transplant, and it was only in there less than a year, and he started rejecting it. So then we had to go through, everything that comes with rejecting it. And then, I was a caregiver for at least 10 years. And near the end, he had heart disease and cancer and was back on dialysis. So those were tough years. And I was the sole caregiver then. So, for a while, I was actually housebound, where I couldn't go out of the house because he couldn't be left alone unless I could get an aide to come. And no, we didn't have a full-time aide or any full-time help. And I was still running the business which was our senior living community while he was going through all this. So, that was a tough time. So yeah, I've had lots of ups and downs, personal injuries, illnesses. Thankfully, no life-threatening serious illnesses for myself. Lost friends to different diseases, just all the same things everybody goes through. But I do think that those years of being a caregiver are now really helpful to me to talk to my followers, because in my age group now, I was younger when it happened to me. And in my age group now, there are so many women going through that. There's so many of them that are taking on the role of the sole caregiver. So it was actually fortunate for me in the way that I learned a lot of things from it. And I learned to keep going through it. And I learned how, for me, I could turn negatives into positives. So I'm able to help them try to find a way to do that. When we were spending so much time in medical facilities because of all of his illnesses, sometimes we would be a month in certain hospitals, especially during transplant time. I would see all these people that were living the same type of life, constant waiting for the next medical test, all these hospitalizations. And we had a fairly decent income, so that was nice. But these other people did not. They couldn't just, if my husband, he was many times in the hospital for 3 weeks. And back then, VCRs were a big deal, and so, I could afford to go out and get him a special TV for his room that had a place to put in a VCR and he could watch movies or something. I looked around, and those little things like radios and things that you could bring in, other people, it just wasn't in their budget. And I started thinking about how awful it must be, even worse, to be going through all of this when you're still worrying constantly about money. So I started Small Comforts Foundation, which is a charity that people can apply to us for any item or assistance that will raise their quality of life or their morale. Because, a lot of medical facilities and other charities deal with the big things, the hospitalizations and the tests, but it's the little things sometimes that can really make a difference, like a sick person that is housebound but doesn't have a computer. So we would get them a computer so they can be hooked up to the internet. Hydraulic lift chairs so they can get up and down. We do everything. We do pretty much every case is considered individually to see whether or not this item that they receive will raise their morale or quality of life. So that was my way back then. I just needed to put my energy into something. And that was my way back then to channel all the negative stuff we were going through and turn it into something that was positive to work on. So I'm lucky that I had that experience, because maybe in some small way I can help somebody else because of having gone through it.
And also, I feel that when we overcome and get through certain very, very hard things, we realize, at least it's the case for me, oh, wow, I actually survived that and thrived.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I'm facing some apparently insurmountable challenge now, I feel, okay, it feels insurmountable, but I will get through this as I have before.
Yeah.
So, and now you're remarried for many, many years, right?
16 years now. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. That's so, Phil and I are 14 going on 15. So
Yeah.
that's very, very exciting and promising to me.
Yeah. One of the other things we learn as we're getting older is that things can seem really negative and you can feel like things are never going to get better. And then life all of a sudden throws something in front of you never expected that's wonderful. I never expected to marry again. And you might not have either, but that's the great thing about life. Yeah, there's bad times, but it never stays the same. It's going to change and good things can still happen.
That is so true. If somebody had told me when I was 45 on food stamps, a single mom with 2 little kids, because I had them later, that I was going to meet the love of my life not long after, I would not have believed it. And it's not like I married into money or anything. We were both broke, but we were both hopeful and, wanted the certain same things. So you're right. Beautiful things can happen.
Yeah.
And they do. And then you're also an artist. Tell me a little bit about
that's my hobby.
Oh, that's your hobby. It looks more like something that you could make a living off of, from what I looked at.
Well, I enjoy it. I was an art major in college and I never did anything with it because I went into the business world and started working in that capacity. And it was actually when I met Greg, my current husband, and he was I was telling him I used to paint and everything. Well, why don't you paint now? I don't know. I haven't done it in so many years. I wouldn't even know where to start. So he went out and he bought me a set of paints and an easel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, well, I don't know what to do with this stuff now. So I felt like I had to try it because he had, was nice enough to go buy me this stuff. So I did. I started painting and I was horrible, absolutely horrible. But then I went and I took a couple of watercolor classes and started up at it again and just loved it and kept it up. And, slowly doing it, my skills got better and I started to remember a lot of the things that I had forgotten. And so, yeah, I actually built an art studio in my house. So I would have a place to go and keep all of this stuff there accessible all the time because I only have a little bit of time to go into my studio every day. So yeah, I love my artwork. I really enjoy it.
How old were you when you started painting again?
Probably mid 50s. Yeah.
So there's
Mid
just
50s. Yeah. So maybe 20 years now, something like
imagine. So if
that. Yeah.
somebody in their 50s, which is often that I hear, I'm too old for this or for that. And
Right.
if you
Yeah.
keep doing it, look, you have 20 years. And that would be 20 years of not painting had you not
Yeah.
started in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
50s. I'd like to touch a little bit on the what I love a lot, which is Instagram and social media and how you handle yourself in that. Do you have a team at this point? Do you edit your own reels? Are you making a living? Do you answer comments yourself? A little bit of how that looks for you.
I answer all the comments myself, which is getting harder and harder. I spent most of my days between YouTube and other platforms answering comments because I feel like if people are nice enough to look at my stuff and then they take the time out of their day to make a comment, the least I can do is answer the comment. And I want to answer the comment. It's just sometimes there's so many of them, it takes me a while to get to them all. So yes, I do answer all my own comments. I do most of my own editing. I finally broke down last year and I started working with a great marketing team, East Shore Marketing, and they're really great people. And they've been extremely helpful to me. So they manage certain parts of the business and I manage certain parts. So between us, we keep everything going. Because as you know, I'm sure it gets harder, the more followers you get, the more different projects you have going, it's almost impossible to do it yourself. But up until last year, I did do everything myself, but I learned a lot, which is a lot of fun. I loved learning all the editing programs and I think that's my favorite thing, doing the editing. I really enjoy that.
It's funny because I do outsource some things, but I also started my business with different platforms, the blog being it used to be 10 years ago, Viva 50 was the mothership. And then that changed because Facebook was super important, Pinterest a little bit, then, and then Instagram was not a part of the puzzle at all. Twitter
Mm.
was. We had Twitter parties and I got paid to host Twitter parties. Maybe you don't even know what that is. Like
Oh.
nowadays, nobody knows what that is. But boy, oh boy, the budgets were there for that, So it's interesting to me how everything has evolved. And I have not had explosive growth by any means on Instagram because after 14 years or 13, however long Instagram has been around, I am very aware of what my following is. And I hit yesterday, I think it was 44,000, which is nothing. Nothing. Yeah, but it's nothing compared to like your 200,000. But at the same time, I make a living full time doing this. So I can't complain. Like I realize sometimes I tell myself, you don't need, like, I don't want to obsess about having a certain number of followers because I do reach certain people and I do make a living. Like this is how I pay my bills, how I send my kid to college, how,
Right.
and so I'm doing fine. I do a lot of user generated content, which is where a brand, like I do content for the brand and they post it on their
Yeah.
channels, but I don't have to do it. And then maybe I'll do exercise videos for the ARP or for just for other channels that have nothing to do with mine. And I'm very
Right.
happy doing all that. So my business model is sponsorships mainly, but I also make money from programmatic ads on the website. I am really bad at affiliates, but I think you're the affiliate queen. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what your business model is.
Well, I do a lot of affiliate links. I have Shop My Closet, which is anything that I've worn on social media. People can go right there and get the link to shop it as long as it's still in stock. So I do a lot of that. Brand sponsored, I limit myself because I enjoy doing my organic stuff so much more. I love just the creating and, like I said, the editing. I really enjoy that. And I like doing the brands, but I'll only do a brand if it's a brand that I'm personally familiar with, that I've got experience with, that I'm excited about, and that I really think my followers could get some value from. You know, if it's something that I think, wow, I really love this, I got to share this with my followers. That kind of thing I get excited about. But every day I get 20, 30 requests to do things with brands that either I have absolutely no experience with, or they're just not things that excite me or things that I would actually use. And if I won't actually use it, you know, I'm not going to promote it. So I'm sure that I could be doing more brand sponsorships, but I'm just happy to do the ones that I'm excited about when they approach me.
No, that's great. I think that's also a rule of thumb for anybody who does this, like seriously, so to speak. I think we only say yes to 5% of what comes in.
Yeah.
So at the end of the year, like if anybody were to look at my Instagram, I don't have a lot of sponsored posts, but the ones that I have are paying
Right.
my bills,
Right.
as I said, but it's the same deal.
Gifting is sometimes a problem because people,
Mm,
you know, constantly want to send you things and gift them to you, but you know, they do expect, they may not
mhm.
specifically say, if we send you this, you must post about it, but you know that's what they want you to do. And so I can't constantly be saying, oh, I just got this, you should buy it, or I just got this, or this is great. You can only have so many favorite products, you
I
know.
get
And
it. Yeah.
so if I'm working for one brand, skincare brand, I'm not going to say, oh, I love this one too. Oh, I just got this one. This one's great too. I mean, at some point you lose your, I didn't say the word, but you know what I mean.
Authenticity. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Authenticity, yes. At some point you lose that with your followers, and you know, that's not a good thing. So I do limit the gifting.
10 years ago, 14 years ago, when I was managing somebody else's website, brands then went bananas sending, I mean, boxes and boxes of stuff. And I remember at the very beginning, I was so excited. Like I would say yes to everything,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, of course, you had to deal with the where's my editorial on this,
Right.
whatever it was. And then there came a moment when I realized, oh my God, nothing is free, like nothing.
Yeah.
And my first experience actually was I was managing a section of a website that belonged to the New York Times, and we were taught ethics. And the ethics was that you could not accept anything over $100. And if you did, you could accept it and talk about it, but then you had to return it. Of course, they weren't keeping tabs on who was doing
Oh,
that. But then I
yeah.
realized, okay, so the way that they taught us to start reviewing things was buy it yourself and review wherever you want. And that way it will be unbiased. And so I think it's quite clear though, when nowadays actually that's changed. I don't get the cartloads of stuff that I had for the kids. Like my kids were little and they would send them all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. They would send us to Disney. Like the kids had a great growing up. Now they don't want to even be on my socials, but when they were younger, they knew that I made a living doing that. And so they would be in the promoted stuff, and it was our lifestyle.
Yeah.
But nowadays brands are way more contained when it comes to gifting. And I also don't say yes to everything like I used to. I remember once, the silliest thing I ever did, because I do silly things here and there, definitely. I said yes to a pair of freaking flip-flops. Like, why did I say yes to that? But wait, this is the worst part of it, is that they hounded me. The flip-flops were like $20. It's not like it was something I couldn't afford myself, And for what I don't know what was wrong, I said yes to that. And then they were like, oh, but no, we don't want the story. We want you to hold the flip-flop. Like, and I'm like, excuse me, no, I'll send the flip-flops back. It was, and as you know, I started working with an agent and manager 7 years ago,
Yeah.
because I did not want to field and have those conversations. I wanted
Right.
somebody
Right.
else to deal with that. I am not good at it. I'm a creative person. I am terrible at asking for money and enough money and negotiating. Like I'll do it, but it takes so much of my energy that then I have to go to
Yeah.
bed, and I could never manage what Joanna manages. But yeah, it was like nothing is free. Nothing is free. So now when, for example, the Clarison will close, which is how I found you, I looked at their clothes and I was like, oh, I really do like them. I
Hmm.
have, I don't know how many jackets I have, but I wear them, and I
Yeah.
do love them.
Yeah.
And there's only two brands of clothes that I do that with. And sometimes I say, okay, we're going to take a break because I'm not
Yeah.
getting paid and I just like the clothes and I want to wear them.
Right. Right.
But there comes a moment when I have to say, okay, it does, Lorraine, you're not a child, although I really am inside, but I really still get excited. I get a package.
Oh, I know. I feel the same way. And I do think that the affiliate marketing and the ambassadorship programs are growing. I think more and more of the brands are starting their own, they're
Mhm.
having their own affiliates like Clara Sunwoo does, to wear their clothes and help market them. And I've got a lot more brands approaching me to do that kind of thing. And if I really, really like the brand and I really think my followers will enjoy it, then I will participate with them. But I think that's a growing field now.
It is. It is. I still think I suck at it, so I do a little bit here and there. But I really, oh my God, trust me, the best one that's worked for me is actually Clara Sunwool. But I've done others where, and brands are more and more wanting conversions. Like I had a
Yeah.
brand once. It was a pretty lucrative situation, and I had to go to this place here in Florida where they did some kind of rejuvenation, like with oxygen, this and that and the other. But the whole treatment cost $65,000. Wanted me to guarantee that somebody that followed me was going to sign up. And I'm like,
Oh,
I can't guarantee that. I walked away from it because I'm not, I don't, how can I guarantee this? But
yeah.
brands are more and more wanting conversion. So I'm very upfront about, well, this is my results with this brand. And if you're still okay with it and you're okay with awareness. And then a lot of brands are also doing whitelisting. I,
Hmm.
you know what that is, right? Where they pay
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
have access to your channels and then they'll push it. Fine. If you know that's what you're going to do, I'm fine with it. But I can't guarantee anything
Right.
because social
Yeah.
media is, even for those of us who are on it on a daily basis and learning about it, I think it's still like a little bit of a crapshoot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to know, I'm sure you've experienced it. You'll post something that you will think, well, this is probably not going to get that much interest. And it gets a huge amount. And you post something, you think, oh, I'm so excited about this. They're going to love this. And it gets nothing.
So I took this editing course a couple of years ago and I signed up to a different one by the same person, Tina Lee. I really like her tutorials. And so I've signed up to up my editing game because I also like to do it myself because I'm 16, because I don't want to give it to someone else and then I don't have the skill. Like it would be
Right.
easy to give it away, but I
Yeah.
want to have that skill. And but interestingly, my best performing videos are me walking in anything with sequins or a dress. And I do have to think a little bit of what the message is going to be. But unfortunately, or I don't know if that's unfortunately, those videos perform better than something where I spent 3 hours editing the video.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So getting back to your point, because we never know how people are going to respond, there's no way that we can know for sure how much of a particular product we're going to sell or if we're going to sell any of it.
Correct, correct, correct. Do you participate in any, like, are you part of midlife groups? Because I see you more as a, this is who I am. And I think I might be mistaken, but I'm a kind of person who kind of puts blinders and I'm not very much into communities of, like, I support other women, but I don't spend a lot of time talking about my work. I kind of more like I do it.
Right, right.
And I
Yeah, no,
think that's how you are, but
yeah, I really haven't. I mean, I've met some really nice
yeah.
influencers, and I think I'm maybe going to meet one of them in person while I'm down here this year. But I haven't gone to any of those conferences, the midlife one, and there's been several of them. I enjoy watching the posts about them, but and again, they're all, I think, women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s and stuff. And I just don't know how much I would have in common with them. So I think I'm kind of looking for a group of women that are in their 70s and 80s that, want to do things together.
That's so exciting. I love, maybe you could create that.
Yeah, if I had the energy.
Oh, that's also true. I have all these ideas of
Not
things
so
I
much,
want to
it's not
do.
the physical energy, it's just the energy of, creating everything
Bandwidth.
else to take on something like that also. So
Yeah, like mental bandwidth. Like I've once in a while I want to create a course, and then I think, what am I thinking about? Like I can barely do the work I have right
Yeah,
now. And
I
once
know.
I also thought of creating a product. People, when they tell me, have you tried a product? I'm like, yes. I wasted my money. I spent a ton of money on jewelry because I wear silver jewelry, and nobody bought a single
Oh,
pendant of, but
no.
with my logo, anyway, but at least I try,
Yeah.
and I think that's so important. So what, I know you have so much wisdom that everybody can find on all your social media, on your website, on your YouTube, and it's all Life in My 70s. Am I correct?
It is. Yeah, it's all the same name. Yeah.
Perfect. So at Life in My 70s, anybody can be as inspired as I am when I follow Candace, or I see something new that she's doing, or I mean, it just gives me hope that that's who I'm going to be, when
Oh, it's very
or the
kind of you.
version that
Thank
I
you.
will bring to it when I'm your age. I can't wait to see what else you do. But what would you tell me? Because I've heard you say, and I have the same feeling, you would not go back to your 60s or even 70s.
No, I like where I am right now. I mean, if somebody asked me, what was your best age, I'd say now. For a million reasons, but mostly because I feel like now I am the person that all of these years was building up to. Everything I learned is made me the person I am today. So I just want to enjoy it.
And I am 60 and I feel the same way. So I can't even, I wouldn't go back to 55. I wouldn't go back to 59. I read a lot about death as well. I mean, it might sound morbid, but I want to, I want to understand the process, the spiritual
Yeah,
process, the
yeah.
emotional process. So some people might call it morbid. I call it embracing the inevitable, or what
Yeah,
is.
well,
No,
I'm a huge proponent of planning ahead. So not that I'm planning ahead for my death, but I do
I hear you.
think about these things because if you never think about them, life is just going to hit you and you are not going to know how to handle it. You're not going to, I always say plan ahead for the person you want to be in the next decade. So, don't just float along and let life take you where it does because you do have some control over the person that you want to be in every decade.
I think we have a lot more control than people think.
Oh,
Like
I
I
do
know I
too.
do, right?
Yeah,
Because you can,
definitely.
I know so many people who are like their best days were high school or college. And I'm like, oh my goodness, if that is so sad,
Yeah, I
like
agree.
what's going on now? And
Yeah.
my brother-in-law turned 60 before I did. We're months apart. He was not a happy camper. And I was like, why? I can't understand it. Like I can't relate to it. And I think it's because of that curiosity that you were alluding to before, is like what more is there, and the understanding your life from now backwards. Like I can't say, oh, that was a horrible relationship I was in, that was terrible what I did. No, because all of that led me to the person I am today, just like you said.
Absolutely. Yes.
Any parting words of wisdom? Imagine that you're telling me, because
No, just plan ahead for the person you want to be, and then you have some control.
I want to
That's,
be Candace.
oh, thank you.
My version of Candace.
Thank you.
Well, everyone, in the notes below, I will put it down there, but remind us where we can find you.
Life in My 70s. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok. And so all you have to really remember is Life in My 70s by Candace Cima.
Candace, thank you so very much. It was a
Oh, thank
pleasure.
you. It's so much fun talking to you.